Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, we just watched what can only be described as technically a football game.
It was. Yeah. No, it was on TV and everything, and they had the whole production crew out there. It was not good. It was not pretty football. But I will say, and I know we're going to talk about it. It was a nice bit of distraction, and the show
Yeah.
will here be a continued bit of distraction here for a couple hours. Not a great end of the week here for the Buffalo Bills, and so it was nice to have this game, even though it wasn't a good football game, to just have a couple hours where it really was just about football for a couple hours here, and yeah.
Yeah, obviously, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it tonight, but we will talk about the news of the day, which is the horrific, disgusting allegations against Matt Araiza. It's important to note that they are allegations right now, so I want to be tempered in the things that I say, but the information that's available, some of the information that was shared, phone calls with the police, it at the best case scenario, it looks horrible. And in the worst case scenario, it's a, criminal situation that people involved should be in prison. So obviously I was relieved that the team didn't put him in uniform. I thought that would have been a horrible mistake of rolling the dice to find out afterwards that these things were true. I am hopeful that we may, after the show, find out more information from the press conference. I don't know that I expect that or those comments there, but hopefully very, very soon. I would like an explanation of either why he's released or a really fair amount of detail about why he's not.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I know Twitter is a hard place for conversations like this, right? And I know some of my tweets have been taken out of context by some people, and I've been trying to clarify and have those conversations throughout the day. But really, my stance is similar to yours, where these are serious allegations, and like best case scenario, there's still some problems here, and worst case scenario, like it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed criminally, like you said. But right now, I'm in a tough spot because the Bills are in a very hard position, even though they seemingly look to have made some mistakes here, and they are going to have to come back and do some PR cleanup here over the next week. I agree. I don't think it's going to happen in this press conference. I'm assuming he's going to be asked questions about it
Oh, yeah.
for sure. I think you're going to get your generic Bills response of like,
Yeah.
"Hey, look, we're
Ongoing
here to talk about the
investigation.
game. All the guys that were playing tonight, a lot of guys had their job on the line. Da da da. We will address this." I'm assuming maybe there'll be something that would be the extent of it. Like, this will get addressed here coming forward. But I do think the Bills did do a very positive thing tonight, even though it might not be enough for a lot of people out there. The fact that Araiza did not warm up with the team. Joe Biscaglia pointed out that he was not in the Bills warm-ups.
Yeah, literally not even in
Every other player was in
every other
the
player had
sweats
the team
on arriving.
branded sweats.
Nothing team branded on him. I'm guessing that was somewhat intentional. These guys are loaded with team branded clothes when they travel. I'm guessing there was some intentional to that. That I think does matter from an optics perspective, that even though maybe mistakes have been made, they are taking this very seriously. And I think that they are at least putting this on hold until further information comes out, or they can get out in front of this with some further information. So that's where I'm at right now. I am on hold looking for further information, but a very weird story. Definitely had me doom scrolling all night and not in a good feeling with my football team. I come to football just for talking to you, Greg, and the fun that we have and making jokes and having a good time. And this was not that at all, as experience as a football fan. And I do hope there's some resolution to this so that we can get on and enjoy what it is that we love. Cause this is a big black cloud hanging over our favorite thing right now.
Yeah, spot on. We'll get to the football here in a quick moment, but just wanted to, it would be, I think, irresponsible of us not to at least comment on what is an enormous story and everything that's going on. And, being in this kind of situation, I, am trying hard not to rush to what I think is the obvious emotional response to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that I want to give people the opportunity to find out more information, but it right now looks very, very bad. And that I want resolution quickly because I want to believe that the team that I love and support wants to make the right decision quickly and wants to move on quickly. and wants to do the right thing here. So I either want to find out why it's the right thing, or I want to see a decision.
And that might be, to warn some of it, that might be hard on them. I don't know what those conversations with the team's legal counsel about what they can elaborate on. But I'm with you. I would love to get some elaborating on some of the stories of, hey, they knew this weeks ago, when they knew, what they know. But because this is a civil case, I don't know how much they're going to be willing to be able to give up. But I do hope there's some form of responsibility. We have seen this, them get asked some pretty tough questions over the years and have to have some responsibility, not necessarily in the case of the 13 seconds, but the off the field stuff. I think they'll address this at some point and get us some answers. I'm hoping so, because there's a lot of people that are very hurt by this and impacted by these types of stories that aren't in direct impact. And those are the people that I feel for in how those comments and stuff on Twitter are going back and forth. Cause there's people that this has happened to, seeing how people react to this. And I just hope that everyone involved takes it as serious as possible to find out what's going on and create the right resolution.
Yeah, really well said. So with that, obviously we are going to pivot into football now. So I don't plan on going into that over and over again. I'm hoping the next time we talk to you guys, there's resolution here and we can simply move forward, focused on football. Tonight, obviously, we're not going to spend a ton of time. We're here to recap a game that ended 21-0. It was a really rough watch. It started with a weather delay, multiple lightning delays.
Bunch of injury moments.
So
it didn't. Well, Darnold had the serious one, but outside, and then maybe a broken nose.
Sounds like it for Cam Lewis. Yeah. So luckily, I think the Bills escaped without anything serious to this point. So that's obviously a positive takeaway. But I'm not going to go through all of the box scores like we normally do. We're not going to go through each of the
come on, Greg,
each of the position reviews like we do. But I do want to go through. And maybe we'll talk about the position groups like we did the other night and just simply say who were people that either made a positive or maybe negative flash tonight. And then see what came from it there. We'll start with the quarterbacks. Obviously, I think this reinforced what we saw in the first preseason game, that Case Keenum is not a player who is going to elevate the players around him. He is a quarterback who can execute if he has an offensive line of skill players. If we put him in with second and third stringers and he has to elevate that, we're simply not going to see it. And we didn't tonight. And that Matt Barkley isn't that guy either, but we'll talk about Matt Barkley separately in a moment.
Sure. Yeah, no, I felt like you knew it was going to be a bit of an underwhelming night, especially in that starting portion of the game where you really had some third stringers going up against starters, right? Like there was a mix of second and third stringers playing for the Bills in this game, going up against the first stringers. And it is what it is, because teams are at different points in their development. So I get why Carolina's playing those guys, and it's going to be what it is. But you have to sort of put that baked into the context of looking at this game and judging these players based on this game. Because it wasn't just for the quarterbacks. There was a number of players where they probably looked worse than they are because of who they were going against at certain times and just the positions that they were put in. But it wasn't pretty for the quarterbacks. But I do think still nothing moved. It's Case Keenum's deal. And here's the thing, like, I don't know if Mitch Trubisky would look much better in this situation either. They're all kind of the same when you're talking about these bottom of the NFL QBs.
So in things that matter, I don't think Mitch Trubisky's better. In situations like this where maybe his athleticism, he could run around a little bit more, he might actually look a little less, exposed. But this isn't why we got Case Keenum. We didn't get Case Keenum to make up for our second and third stringers. We got him to step in when we have a real offensive line as Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and just function with the rest of the team. I do want to give a shout out to Matt Barkley. He was in a weird situation tonight. I think it was funny for fans, but no professional athlete wants to go out there and embarrass themselves in a weird situation. So the fact that he stepped up for the team and put himself out there, and then him simply not embarrassing himself would have been a win. And he did better than that. Like, he was a functional NFL punter tonight and ended up, way
worse than Hawk last year.
Honestly, he ended up punting 4 times for 160 yards, 40 yards a punt. Like, he was a functional NFL punter for a game.
couple of those line drives could have gotten scary in a real game.
But
that 53-yarder that rolled in, that was a beauty, right?
It was great.
That's like every once in a while. I'm not a great golfer. Every once in a while, if I do go out, I smack one that's just a beauty, and it's like that's what Matt Barkley did in front of everyone, right there. But no, really, what's great about this is, I think it is fun for fans and stuff. But I was having that conversation with Nate, and I love Nate Geary, and it's nothing against him. But when he was talking about taking a snap from Reed Ferguson and holding it, and that it was going to be easy, like none of the stuff that these incredible athletes do on the field is easy. Even the stuff like, I think punters are easy to make fun of.
For granted.
Yeah. Catching a snap from Reed Ferguson as a punter and getting that off while people are running at you and getting it up in the air at all is a pretty impressive thing. It just goes to show you, like, I think we talk about Matt Barkley as like a subpar athlete in comparison to all of his peers, but this guy is to be able to go out and do that. It still shows you that he's an incredible athlete. Yeah.
He's so professional athlete.
It really is.
So let's talk a little bit about the running game. I think that obviously this is showing that we are, I think it's make or break from the offensive line. When we have our starting offensive line and the talent and the things that Aaron Cromer are putting together, we have running backs who can take advantage of that. When it's not there, we don't have guys who are going to create and just, make guys miss in the phone booth and all those different kind of, not on a regular basis. I also think tonight was a good, healthy reminder that Raheem Blackshear is an interesting player, but is someone we're going to be fine to roll the dice on getting him on practice squad. There's not some hidden superstar here. I am interested in him developing. I want him on the practice squad.
Yeah, totally.
I think he has a path for 2023, but we're okay. If we're okay if he gets claimed. If someone claims him, I'm going to root for him and wish him all the best. But I think that this run game goes as far as the offensive line allows it, and the threat that Josh Allen provides with light boxes. If we're in a game like tonight with a backup offensive line and stacked boxes, it ain't going to do it.
Yeah. And the receiving core and tight ends matter in this too, right? Like Dawson Knox is out there with OJ Howard and some of those two tight end sets. You have two good blocking tight ends. Gabriel Davis obviously adds to the run blocking, right? Receiver. And then they, to your point of the threat of Josh Allen, they also add to the threat where defenses are accounting for Stephon Diggs. They're accounting for Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie's speed. And you can do a little bit more and get that run game going. So again, I think this is going to be the common theme of tonight. These are hard games to really go through. I think we're going to have to go back and watch, and instead of necessarily comparing the production or the success within the game, is watch the individual reps and how the players did within these individual reps. And that's what the coaches are going to be watching. It's not going to be about the score or what happened. It's, as for terms of production, it's going to be what did these guys do in their individual opportunities, because there's so much context here, like we're talking about, that just is odd. The run game is just not going to get going in the way that you would like to see it when you have this type of setup. But I thought James Cook still showed some nice things. He had that 8-yard run, a couple of those ones to the outside. I would have been frustrated with him because I do think he's got a little bit of that CJ Spiller wants to take it outside, but really, from at least the first view, I noted a couple of them to go back and look. It didn't look like there was much. Again, probably a reference to this offensive line and just not having that gelling and consistency with this group. So I'm not going to totally blame him there. But again, he's a guy that has impressed me more than I thought he would when we were in Vegas at the draft, and I wasn't sure how they'd use him. I actually really like this guy. So I thought he had a pretty good day. And then Duke Johnson is a dude. He's not going to make this team. I can't see it, but he's put together, he's put together a heck of a preseason, Greg. Like, special teams, every time he's getting returns, he's doing something decent. Like, he hasn't done anything wrong to lose this job. It's just a numbers game he's going to lose out. And I feel bad for him because he had a nice night tonight.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on the wide receiver group? I thought that I was watching carefully a lot. You would prepped it with Hodgins versus Kumaro. I will say it's going to matter a ton. They gave up a 27-yard kick return and a 23-yard punt return. I want to see where Hodgins was in those coverage units.
Or where Kumaro was. Right?
Or Kumaro. Yeah, sure.
What
were your thoughts on how they played either way?
Yeah, I mean, Hodgins had that one drive where the drive actually ended in a 4th down stop. I thought they
Yeah.
were going to score, but he had 2 4th down plays where he really
One
just used that
tough
size
contested
and
catch.
physicality and the tough catch, and then he came back with another really nice catch just a play after that. He had just like 3 right in a row, and you really felt that momentum. Like the guy really does catch everything that's thrown his way. It's exactly what we saw from the college tape and what people projected him to be, and I understand fans liking that and wanting a guy to keep a guy like that around. I also want to keep a guy like that around. I do think this is probably the game. It's going to be another tough one because some of those Parkley punts didn't have the necessarily hang time that's fair to the Gunners, but I do want to go back and actually watch the special teams reps, which is something I rarely ever do, but I do think that's going to be where they split hairs on Kumro and Hodgins, because I don't even know that I'd have to go back and watch some of Kumro's routes and reps because he got targeted twice, I think. One like went into the
Yeah,
ground,
they counted 2 targets. I
2
don't know that he
targets.
yeah, I don't know that he could
Yeah,
have
I think
caught
one
the
was
other
broken
one.
up and like one went there, or he
Yeah.
caught one,
He
right?
caught
He
we
did
had 1 catch on 2
one
2
catch and then
targets, and I
another.
don't
Yeah.
think he really could have got the second one.
Yeah, and I don't know just because a guy wasn't targeted, does that mean he wasn't playing well as a wide receiver? That's another thing to watch. So I think that is about as close to a coin flip in terms of the roster bubble right now as it goes, is that Kumaro Hodgins one. It really is going to, if Bean's comments are true about playing in the different phases, special teams is going to be the thing that tips those close races. And I think it's definitely going to be Kumaro, but Hodgins may have done enough here in terms of some of the great catches and stuff to say, hey, this guy might be worth keeping as a developmental guy because we have enough of these other special teams players. But the way special teams looks without your Taiwan Joneses and Saran
And
Neals
Matakevich.
and these Manikaviches is not good for the people that are not putting in importance on special teams. I'll say that.
Correct. So we'll see where that one goes. One other thing I want to say, I think I saw consistently positive flashes from Quentin Morris tonight.
Yeah.
And I will say Sweeney had a nice play at the end. He had
Yes,
a
that
nice catch and run at the end.
24-yard or
Yep,
whatever.
nice one at the end. But there were an awful lot of rough ones earlier. Blown up on a couple. He got destroyed on that 4th down run.
Yeah.
And then had a nasty holding call and just, some things where you couldn't afford to not look great in those situations. So I I won't lie, it's weird how much OJ Howard played. I've been adamant the entire time. They only dressed a handful of tight ends. Someone had to play.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to just have him sit and have the 2 young guys play to make the decision. The fact that he was out there that whole time looked like fairly equal snaps between the 3 of them. I can't dismiss. I want to say the contract, his blocking ability, his experience as a group that, it's no big deal. I cannot dismiss it. And I just don't know. I don't know what else to do. And I will say a lot of people saying the McDermott presser has gone off and that it was very difficult. That's not shocking. We'll certainly watch it after the show.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate you, Cliff.
Yeah, I'm not shocked that didn't go smoothly over there. But the OJ Howard thing it is tough for me again because they did dress all 3 and they were running some 2 tight end stuff.
A lot of 12.
A lot of 12 personnel, and so you definitely want to get some bodies in there. But yeah,
and guys need a blow. You can't have them just play snap after snap.
Sure, guys need a rest. So there might be some load management to it. I'm still. Anything's possible, right? Like I'm not going to be shocked if we wake up tomorrow and OJ Howard's traded or something like that. There is enough smoke surrounding this from the beat guys, from other national guys starting to pick up that hey, maybe he's going to be a guy that's on the outs. There's some smoke there, and obviously what you're saying sort of confirms some of that too. I can see how that is, but I really just think this is a race between Sweeney and Morris for tight end 3. I just don't see. OJ Howard is such a good blocker at this point. We've seen Tommy Sweeney make mistakes in the blocking game, and he's not a dynamic athlete in any way. And yes, it's fun. And Steve Tasker actually had one of the better points I've heard about this, because a lot of times you hear, hey, Tommy Sweeney really well liked in the locker room. And Steve Tasker is kind of like, that should be kind of baseline, right? Like to be well liked by the other people. we shouldn't glorify that or say, hey, that's a reason to keep him around because he's well liked. That's baseline entering the NFL locker room, especially if you're not a top guy. Like an Antonio Brown can get away with not being liked because he was so talented. Tommy Sweeney has to be liked, or they're definitely kicking him out, right? Like,
how about this? I would bet Matt Barkley's better liked in that locker room, 100%. And he ain't making the team, and nobody's. That's not the reason anybody's clamoring for him to make the team.
Absolutely. So I really do think it is between Sweeney and Morris for that third. And I think Morris has done more than enough to solidify himself as that third guy. And I think Sweeney's on the outs. But I get what you're saying here, Greg. I'm not totally dismissing that Howard was playing and that you're hearing the smoke and seeing the smoke. So there's dots to connect here.
Yeah. Our man Mike here was asking about Duke. You might have missed earlier when we talked about Duke Johnson.
Johnson, I liked
both fans. I don't think he did enough to make this team, because
running backs don't have great value where you could trade a veteran like that. But he's gonna get cut, and he'll be a Kenyon Drake out there looking for work here early.
I think he'll be a veteran practice squad addition.
You do?
I think he'll be on our practice squad. Now, if anyone else offers him a 53-man spot, of course he will take that.
Yeah.
But I think he will be on our practice squad until we need him or until another team calls.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of running backs there's a lot of them. Yeah. And there's a lot of younger ones than your Duke Johnsons and Kenyon Drakes out there at this point. But, I mean...
And Drake would get a for him.
Yeah, there's some bad running back rooms out there too.
Oh yeah. Atlanta could use a guy.
Right.
Either of them could get reps in Atlanta. All right. So before we switch to defense, the offensive line, I want to address. There was a good question here in the chat that I'm going to give my take on, that I think people are reading into, and it's possible, but I'm not ready for it. So Vita Vega was here talking about Spencer Brown, and there was a couple of comments above it. He was playing tonight. I heard it discussed that this was part of his progression plan, that, he had only practiced like 6 practices before the last game. He hadn't been able to get any game reps. I think he played tonight because they wanted him to get some live reps, not because it is a decided thing that he's a backup and Quessenberry is a starter. Now, let me qualify that. It's possible David Quessenberry beat him out and is the starter. What you saw tonight of Spencer Brown playing is not a declaration of that he very much could still be the starter week 1. And this was just him getting up to speed. He was playing because of that physical progression. And I think it's better than 50-50 that he's the starter, but not a slam dunk.
Sure. No, I think that's all fair.
I know. I think you feel like Quessenberry has it right now.
My understanding is Brown had a setback. He hasn't gotten to the point where he's been ready to play until now. And I don't know what their plan is for how long does he need? What are these plans for how long does he need before the season starts to get into shape for those starting reps in a week 1? Like, just playing a few reps in a game like this isn't the same as going out there and playing a full game week 1 without playing all summer. Like, getting into football shape's a real thing, especially if you're coming off an injury. And so I think there's a scenario where maybe Quessenberry did win it here straight up and he's going to be the starter, but I don't think it's hey, this is a lock at starter. This is hey, watch your back, because we have a guy that we feel can be a starter, and any mistake we will slide him right in when he's healthy. And it could be maybe just a couple weeks to start the season until Brown's fully ramped up to how they think. They're going to be very conservative with him. It was a back injury. He's a large human being. Yeah. Those can be things that just kind of hang around and never really go away. And so I think they want to be very conservative with him. He's young. There really is no need to rush him back because you signed Quessenberry. You have a serviceable offensive lineman. When you have your full 5 in front of you, I think that you can put Quessenberry in with this 5 and be okay and get through it. And so I think manage the Spencer Brown thing, but I don't know that it's an indicator that he is totally straight out lost this job and he's going to be looking at the bench all season long. I think that, we don't know what the plan for bringing back Spencer Brown is, but it seems from everything we've heard from Bean, this is sort of in line with it. It's going to be a slow play and they're going to make sure he's good to go.
Yeah. Cliff here agreed with us. I think Morris earned it, not shade at Sweeney, just that he earned it.
No,
I think he's spot on. Yep. A quick one on that. I'll throw one name out that is in the back of my mind for Quessenberry: Ryan Bates. The fact that Quessenberry can be the backup at 4 out of the 5 spots, they liked that as their 6th offensive lineman. And we saw them wait a long time before they put Bates in the starting lineup because he offered that versatility. And honestly, in hindsight, it probably seemed like they waited too long when he was really just one of the best 5. So I'm curious if they're super close, does that versatility become a factor in having that, hey, we
Could
want
be,
him as
yeah.
the 6th
I mean,
guy and Brown in
Brown's
there, but
not going to be a versatile backup
correct.
lineman, right?
Correct. He can play both tackles probably, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see where that goes. I think again, similar to OJ Howard, or I'll even say a little bit different. I have a better feeling or explanation for why Spencer Brown played tonight than I do about why OJ
Sure.
Howard played into the 4th quarter tonight. That one threw me a little bit.
Yeah.
Defense, I would start with maybe the defensive line. You could tell, when Shaq Lawson and those guys were out there, it was very clear like they were at a different caliber than a lot of the other guys who were out there. Even Brandon Bryant looked
I was going to
pretty
say Brandon Bryant
dominant.
always is really, he's always penetrating. Anytime
How
we
is he
watch, like
not
he's just always pretty
someone's
good.
defensive tackle? How is he not on a roster?
I do think there are a lot of guys at defensive tackle that flash in this
And he's
league and
undersized.
aren't super consistent. Yeah, he's undersized.
He's not huge.
It's sort of like how did Justin Zimmer, end up where he was, or I think there's a lot of guys around the league that end up being like that. I mean, Tim Settle was sitting in Washington just backing up, getting barely any rotation. So I do think there's a number of talented guys there, but this is a guy that I do hope the Bills, I think they'll be able to keep him because of that type of talent. And I hope that they
him and Mike Love, they've been our like
honestly,
go-to.
they're the new Dean Marlowe's. Maybe.
Yeah. They're there. They're just
Can't get rid
waiting
of
for
him.
their
Cam
time.
Lewis might be another one of these guys. Might not be
Yeah.
able to get rid of him. We'll get to him in a minute, but definitely some practice squad cockroaches sitting around the Bills lately.
We appreciate you, Keith. There'll be better games to do post-game shows from and better vibes to have around the team at a later date. We appreciate your support, brother. So
what I will say about the Shaq thing, not just this game, you talked about him like looking better. Eric said it in our DMs, and it's totally true. Like the last couple games, dude, he has been playing excited, hair on fire football, and that's cool for your potential 5th defensive end to be a guy that has just got all motor and pushing these guys ahead of him. There's going to be no slack this year for Epinesa and Basham. Like they don't have a lot of wiggle room to be making mistakes out there because Shaq Lawson's going to be biting for snaps right behind them.
Yeah, and just the fact that how many times have we changed our mind about which defensive end look the best in practices and games? The fact that we've had moments with all 3 of them and feel so good about Rousseau and Miller. I feel great about the defensive line. I feel phenomenal about our defensive line. The fact that
they're just the depth.
Oh my gosh.
What I will say,
the guys who aren't even going to make the team.
It's so weird to me, and I hate to be this guy, but again tonight, I'm hoping Von Miller fixes this, but tons of pressures tonight and not a lot like guys just diving at feet. What is it about these Bills defensive linemen that they get incredible pressure, immediate pressure, and just guys just sneak away? Even Baker Mayfield was out running guys. It's there's something going on. I think it's just a weird coincidence, and hopefully Von Miller cleans it all up when we start seeing him.
And I think Rousseau's reach at Oliver coming up the middle and the other defensive tackles we brought in.
It's been a couple years now with this like getting pressures, not getting sacks, and I saw it today, and it's just like, no, why can't you just get the guy to the ground? Come
on. I will say the linebackers tonight I thought were okay. I didn't see there was a nice blitz from Terrell Bernard, but he also looked lost in coverage a couple times.
That nice blitz I highlighted, but 2 plays before that, I took a bunch of 2-watch plays to go back and watch, and he had those first 2 plays, I think, of the game, the first play and the second play of the game. It looked like they came out and targeted him right away. One didn't go for a completion, the other one did, and there was a couple other plays where he just looked a little lost in coverage, but that blitz on that first down play was real nice. And you see, that's why you see the flashes of that, just knowing where to be. But yeah, the stuff in coverage didn't look great tonight. And that's what we're supposed to be excited about him.
Yeah. Same thing. Balin Spector looks pretty good in run defense. He does not look good in coverage.
No.
But he can run and tackle. I'll give him that. And that's going to apply on special teams.
Totally.
He can run and tackle. He does not look like he knows where to be in coverage. So I got to go back and watch that as well to get a better look at it. But that was not ideal.
Yeah. I mean, it
wasn't what he was drafted for. That's
not what he's drafted for, to be expected. That's going to come with development for young players like this. Yeah. So I think it's just, we draft these guys and we see the highlights and we see the fun things that we think they can do, and we apply that immediately to this team. And I think that probably this game was a good realization that it's fun. The Bills are trying some new things in the preseason, but when the real live bullets are coming and the games are on the line, that maybe some of these guys aren't going to be quite ready year one to get inserted into these big roles that we have for them, and that they're going to need some time to develop. And the Bills will be all right because the guys in front of them are pretty good. I did like some of what we saw out of Dotson today, considering that he was playing with some novice linebackers next to him. You saw him trying to line guys up. There was a bit of confusion a couple times. It looked like, I'm going to go back and watch, but it looked like he was trying to get everybody lined up, and you saw him flying to the ball. He wasn't always making the play, but he was kind of always involved in the plays out there. And I think it's a good reminder that he looked quite better than the other younger linebackers. And I think there was a conversation maybe a couple of weeks ago when Spector had a good game that maybe he would be that guy.
Dotson had that touchdown in a moment.
Yes, and people like Bernard and what the potential of him. But I think Dotson probably solidified tonight a little bit that he's still the better linebacker for 2022.
Yeah. Let's separate the corners and safeties. For corners, I thought Kyrie Elam looked good.
Yeah,
I had that breakup early on. I got so frustrated with the stupid Baker Mayfield thing. They protect quarterbacks so much, so you can't let them put their shoulder down when a guy's literally standing out of bounds. If Elam just leans in and launches back at Mayfield as he's coming out, they throw a flag on him for sure.
100%.
But they let him put a shoulder down when both of Elam's feet were out of bounds. It's just super weird. And some people were like questioning his physicality after that, which is dumb. I watched him a ton on those snaps. He's looking more comfortable in zone coverage, putting his foot in the ground and breaking on the ball.
Yeah, he's fine. And he's a pretty physical player at the point of attack, whether it's at the ball in the air, coming up and run support. Like, he's not scared of contact.
Trey White's not a great tackler.
No, he's not. Eric put out a good tweet too, because he showed that he wasn't getting blocked out of the play. The wide receiver released. He followed him out all the way to the sideline. He covered him all the way to the sideline. That was a
passing play.
And then Baker was going out of bounds. And Baker, that was kind of a punk cheap shot, to be honest, in preseason. And when Baker went up to Elam after the play to tap on the butt, Elam was like, nah, it wasn't cool. Like, I'm going to get you back for something like that. Because I think everybody just assumed, hey, it's preseason. You're coming along the sideline. Like, plays dead, essentially, right? And then he gave him a shoulder. So this whole
fake toughness stuff.
I will never be cool with dudes on the internet questioning the toughness of players in the NFL. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I didn't see a ton from Christian Benford tonight, but no negative flashes. I saw a good run stop.
There was a one play, it looked like in coverage, I wanted to go back and look back at, but hard to blame them looking live. But what I did like is some of the stuff in run support. I'm going to go back and look at. There was some nice contain coming up in the hole, making the right play. A couple plays where it was him and Jaquan Johnson and just being in the right spot.
He's noticeably thick for a corner.
A thick guy and not scared to get in there. And that's been really kind of a hallmark. Even though Trey White's not a great tackler, it's kind of been a hallmark of these Bills defensive backs, is even the ones that aren't great tacklers aren't scared to get into that spot and attack the runner, which is not always something that you see with cornerbacks and defensive backs in the NFL. So that's clearly something that they teach this unit. But I really did like what we saw from them in run support. So that's a big piece of what this defense likes. And you see at that cornerback 2 position a lot with Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, that they prioritize these guys that can come up and tackle and make plays in the run game, because it is an important part when you're in a nickel defense. You do have to rely on those defensive backs to come up and be part of that run support. So big thing. It doesn't always get noticed and doesn't always get talked about, but I'm always looking at how these cornerbacks play the run. And so far, a couple games that I've kind of paid attention to it with Benford, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. He's obviously looks like a find in the 6th round as far as a depth, competitive,
nice depth
corner, 4-phase special teams player.
Probably
maybe more than that. Maybe more than that someday.
Probably more similar to Dane Jackson than we want to talk about right now in terms of like where he will be at in terms of what type of NFL player he'll be. But that's an okay thing. Like, Dane Jackson has put in some good.
If we have a 7th and a 6th round corner who are both like
productive,
playing caliber NFL players, that's great. That's a fantastic
absolutely
thing. All right. So with the safeties, I'm going to say something that's going to make you mad, but I'm going to do a compliment sandwich. So Jaquan Johnson is consistently in the right spot. he flashes of making good decisions, and it makes me crazy that he always looks like the little brother trying to hold on to the big brother as he's like getting taken for a ride.
Yeah, but okay. I will pump the brakes on this because Tremble is like double his
And
size and
Foreman's a big running back. It happened to him with Foreman too.
but he made the stop on Foreman. Like you can get there's a scenario where you're a defensive back and you're going to be the smaller person and you will get run over, but you still make a stop on the play, and it doesn't always look good, right? Like, and people will say, "Oh, you got run over," but you still made the play. The Trumbull one, I do agree with you. There was a few extra yards added on to that, but that's a situation he should lose, right? Like,
yeah. Tremble's big, thick dude, and
big, thick
Foreman's
dude. That's what he's supposed to do. Yeah. But he's got some dog in him. It's gonna happen. He's a bit of an undersized guy. He's gonna lose some of those battles,
and he does not give a crap. Like he throws himself in.
He goes right in.
And I'd rather
and shakes off
that.
blockers.
I would say the one that made me mad was the ankle thing where he lost the ankle tackle and gave up the missed tackle. I'd rather see him go for the hit and like
get run over and make it
knock him back. You know, he's not gonna be Jordan Poyer. He's not gonna knock guys backwards.
Right.
Poyer's not a big guy either. Poyer's under 200 pounds.
No.
So he's not that. Jordan Poyer's a special, different player.
Right.
So I like Jaquan Johnson. I like DeMar Hamlin. I still feel just as strongly that we don't have a starting safety on this roster besides those two.
Well, maybe not starter today, but I actually, man, I'm going to go back again and watch DeMar Hamlin because I felt like he was all over the place in this game. And again, not necessarily making the plays that are going to show up in the ticker for tackles and stuff like that, but almost every time wherever the ball was, DeMar Hamlin was kind of around the ball and coming up. There was a couple times in run support where he didn't make the play, but he was right there filling the gap coming up from safety. So again, maybe they aren't starters in the sense of obviously Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, all pro players,
sure.
right? But I do
probably
think
part of it. I'm probably setting the bar too high of what my mind of a starter is.
Where we are
fair.
Currently sitting at. Yeah. I think if you look at maybe some of the other teams around the league that these guys could maybe get into some of these rooms, even potentially as starters today, or be pushing for that starter role. I think they're right there on the cusp. I don't know that I think they have pretty significant weaknesses, but again, I think if you look around safeties around the league, that some of these teams have safeties with quite a bit of weaknesses. I do think in a pinch, either one of these guys can come in and play solid football and fill in adequately for the Bills, but they're definitely not going to come in and give you the floor that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde give you for sure.
Well, and obviously we're going to find out what the team thinks in March because both Jordan Poyer and Jaquan Johnson
are both
agents, so we're going to find out.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a very positive game for Jaquan Johnson. I love his mentality.
He should have had a pick on Baker on that first drive too. Yeah. That was no way that ball should have gotten through there.
But overall, I think him and DeMar Hamlin had a nice game. They're both.
And
I feel good about the depth of the team. I think some people, I heard people questioning about. I don't know if you said this one. I heard people questioning about if it would even be a big deal if Jordan Poyer held out or if Jordan Poyer's elbow was hurt because it didn't matter because we had Jaquan Johnson. And there is an enormous gap between those guys.
I think you could brace a week or two.
Sure. How we went on a win streak with Dane Jackson when as Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson, they were able to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm ready for him to step in as a starter this year. No, for sure not. But yeah, I like these guys. And I think they're also going to be very good special teams contributors. Yeah. Hamlin made a number of plays on special teams tonight and continues to do it all preseason long. And so that's really where they're going to hopefully be used this year. Hopefully we don't see him at safety at all, except for in some blowout games at the end of games, or maybe in a week 18 game where they've already got first round bye locked up. It's going to be special teams roles for them. I don't think they're ready to take on that safety role, but in a pinch, I'm feeling better today after this preseason than I did going into this when we're going through the position battles. I feel a lot better about that position and the potential future of it.
Yeah. Only one comment from special teams other than we already talked about there wasn't great coverage. So you can only see that on all 22. You can't see who's out of lanes. I want to give credit to our friend Bruce Nolan. He made a comment that perfectly wrapped up my feelings on Khalil Shakur. And he said, I can't describe what it's like to not have any worry or concern when Khalil Shakur is back catching a punt. He said, I don't have any concern about it being muffed or dropped. I just feel completely comfortable when he's back there that he's going to catch the ball, and that I think he looks really natural and comfortable, and that I don't think he's some amazing, like, game-breaking athlete, but I feel good with him back there that he's gonna get the ball every time and give the ball to Josh Allen.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like having Micah Hyde back there.
Yep.
But I'm not,
But
it's
without the
not a
risk of
starter
losing
that
our
you're
all-pro
yes,
safety.
correct. It's like, and he'll probably get you 6 to 8 yards on it,
Yeah.
like regularly
He
on
had a
returns,
21-yarder tonight.
and he'll break one every once in a while. I think he's got the speed and athleticism to do it. But yeah, he's not going to be the next D'Angelo Hall back there,
No.
making plays, but he's going to be consistent. Greg, what have I asked for 5 years on the special teams in general is just consistency. Give me consistency, get Josh Allen the ball. Don't
Give the ball.
make mistakes. Don't be the reason this team loses games. And yeah, I feel really good about it. And to be honest, I was on with Nate and Bulldog a couple weeks back, and we're kind of talking about this wide receiver room and the return game and how this all played out. And I said the best case scenario for the Buffalo Bills is Khalil Shakir just takes that punt job and doesn't even look back, because they have to keep him on this roster anyway, and they might struggle to find ways to get him production in the offense, especially early on. The best case for him is to be that guy that's just a solid punt returner, at least for year one, until they find ways to get him the ball. And that is exactly what's worked out for the Bills so far here this summer. And so I feel good that that job's taken care of, because I know they don't want to run Isaiah McKenzie out there and him be the starting slot wide receiver. Like, we know that's McDermott saying he doesn't want to do that. And I did not want to see Micah Hyde going back there because the options get real slim if you're not going to have Isaiah McKenzie back there. And who else are you keeping on this roster when we're talking about special teams guys? Is it Tywan Jones? You know what I mean? I feel a lot better with Khalil Shakir than any other option. So I'm glad he won that job, because he had a spot on this roster anyway. Now you don't have to keep somebody additional to return. You can just have Shakir, who is going to be here anyways.
Yeah. Shout out to John. Always an awesome supporter. Appreciate you. And appreciation to Matt Barkley. We agree.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts? Did any of your 53-man roster projections change after tonight?
Hard to say. Cam Lewis, maybe. He was the guy I had. If we're assuming Trey's on the pup, I had Cam Lewis. I could see the injury might be like if it takes some time for him to get over the broken nose thing, but he also had a bad game, right? Like, he had a tough couple series in this game, and I don't know if it's close between him and McLeod. Do you just go based on this last performance and put them up against each other? We'll probably have to go back and watch the special teams of both those players, because that is probably going to be what ends up being the difference. But I know they were trying to give Cam Lewis every single opportunity to get that spot, because they started him at the nickel. They've played him at safety. They continued to play him at safety tonight. So they're giving him opportunities to get out there and get it. I don't know if he did enough to take that spot. So that's probably one. And then Bobby Hart didn't have a great game, but again, sort of to our point of the earlier with the offensive line probably wasn't put in a great position to perform particularly well in some of the spots that I saw him not performing well. I mean, if Bobby Hart makes this roster, it's as the absolute last offensive lineman that's probably a game day inactive anyway. And so I expect him to do pretty poorly against starters from the other team, whether or not it's a preseason game or in season. So, and I don't know that the last offensive lineman, whether it's Bobby Hart or Tenuta or Owen, whoever it's going to be, I don't really want any of these guys to play, right, Greg? Like, if they're starting in a real game, that's going to be a problem. They're probably going to get beat up like we saw tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you? Anybody change for you?
You brought up the one. I had McLeod in, and I think I was 55-45 with him and Cam Lewis, and I probably leaned just enough the other way. I want to try to find a spot for Balin Spector. I just don't know where it is. I think he could play special teams. I think there's a non-zero chance that it's not Hodgins beating out Kumaro, that it's Spector beating out Kumaro. And that it looks like it's Hodgins because he'd be wide receiver 6 and the game day inactive guy, but really it's Spector who beat him out to be the coverage guy that let them keep Hodgins, like that kind of like domino effect. So there's a couple of those moves where, I still think I default to Kumaro, but there's chance.
Close.
There's a chance.
Sure.
So I would say I would have flipped right now. If I go to redo it, I would flip Cam Lewis in and Nick McLeod out.
Yeah, these are the conversations Brandon Bean in the front office and the coaching staff are going to be having here over the weekend. It's going to be these.
Jason, I still feel really good about not having Bobby Hart on my 53-man roster, and until he's like in uniform on Thursday night, I'm not gonna believe it.
I think it's close for him. I do. All these guys. This really.
I do want to go back and watch some of the reps from Van Roten, and I think Mance played, and I don't even know for sure if Mance played. He might have sat.
Yeah, I haven't looked at
Mance might have sat with Quessenberry. I got to look and see if he played. I think Van Roten played, and I want to look at his snaps.
Yeah, I will say this is probably going to be the game over the weekend here. Hopefully we get the all 22 and we can really take a look. This is probably the one I'm going to look at the most because again, my 53 filled up to 50 pretty quick. I'm looking really closely at these last handful of spots. And since we're not going to find out till Tuesday anyway, I want to find out sort of what the Bills are thinking. And I think this is probably going to be the game that I pay the most attention to at those spots, at your Bobby Harts, at your Cam Lewis's, Nick McLeod's, Hodgins, and Kumro, and really kind of highlighting those special teams reps for some of those guys, which is something I'm not used to, Greg. I don't even know what I'm looking at, to be honest, when I'm looking at special teams coverage. And again, with the Barkley punts, it might be a tough one. So there's a lot of
look at, like, do they kind of stay in their lane and do they get off a block? Like that's the only thing I know.
Don't get stuck on blocks or pushed out of bounds. Yeah. But it's definitely going to be a tough weekend for the Bills coaching staff and front office when it comes to those final positions and sort of the conversations we've had of, hey, can we get this guy on our practice squad, or can we keep this vet and him be the practice squad guy, or what are we going to do with game day inactives? All those conversations are happening at One Bills Drive this weekend, and going to be some late nights for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, we appreciate it. For a rough, ugly game and for a late night and a delay, the chat was awesome. You guys were fantastic. This was a lot of fun to be able to go through on what wasn't a fun night or a fun game. So,
or a fun end of the week here so far. So thank you for a nice distraction here and joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys very, very much. I will say there was some interesting things. I am looking forward to going and listen to the press conference afterwards. And I saw an interesting comment. Cliff here found that Catherine Fitzgerald of the Buffalo News reported that not only was Araiza not in the locker room, but the locker between Tyler Bass and Reed Ferguson was empty and did not have a number plate on it. And he also wasn't in uniform. I'm not going to connect dots on that. That simply may be PR of not wanting any pictures of him.
Anything around anything. Yeah.
But that also leans into,
they understand the sensitivity of it.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm hoping for resolution of where that goes. So we'll see where those things go. And Paul here just said, did we address it? Yes, please. You can go back and see the beginning of the show. We did address our thoughts on it. And certainly, if nothing else, other than the fact that if any of the things that are alleged are true, people should be in prison. Beyond that, I want resolution because I don't want this cloud over the rest of this team. And I don't want these vibes and feelings that I've felt for the past 24 hours, which have been gross, around what has been a really fun season and a really good organization. So I want this addressed and closed out and resolved as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And it might not be as soon as we all like. I do think I'm getting the vibe less than 24 hours since the news broke. Was very upset with the Buffalo Bills right away with how it appeared to be being handled. Whether or not they did the right thing 2 weeks ago or leading up to this point, it does seem like they're understanding the sensitivity of this. It does seem like they're now looking at least to try to find out to get this right. Keeping him away from everything today was the right decision. I'm interested to see what the press conferences said, but it at least appears to me that they're pivoting back to the right decision, and that makes me feel a little bit better. I don't want to be a fan of the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
Right. Like that's where I'm at right now. I don't want my team to be a disgrace where people are saying this organization's run poorly and we have to start talking about making changes because these people don't care about human beings. I want no part of that. So as long as they don't become the Cleveland Browns and get this resolved, I think I'll be doing all right here.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Jason. We felt the same. Tonight was a nice break to feel normal again and just talk about football. We're all going to get a little bit of a break here. We'll have the news of Cut Down Day. Then we'll get kind of a little stretch of Labor Day, our last stretch vacation and break before football, and then we'll be right back into it, and it'll then be Von Miller and Josh Allen against Matthew Stafford and Aaron Donald, real football. We are going to be here for you guys. Next week we do have a live show that we're going to be hanging out with you guys. Maybe some other fun shows in between that we talk about some things. We'll see where things go. But we'll be live at Uncle Jumbo's Tasting Room with Tim Graham joining us, which shout out to Tim Graham. He's done an awesome job reporting on all this story.
Very busy.
Amazing as usual. So looking forward to being able to talk with him, hopefully on a later note that night by the time all this stuff is resolved, hopefully resolved. So we'll get through there, and then we'll get back into things with our lead up right into that game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's good to get this preseason behind you and move into the season. I'm very excited to see Josh Allen, Von Miller, and this Bills team put in work here this year. It's going to be a tough first stretch of the season. That's probably where my anxiety is the most right now, is this first month, seeing what they're going to do with Trey White going forward. We're assuming that's pop. How are they going to handle that? There's still a lot of questions. So I'm excited to see where the next couple of weeks take us leading up into this, Greg. And I'm excited to see you again, man. This might be the summer of Greg here for me. It's going to be 3 times now this summer, 4 times since spring that I get to see you in real life. So I'm doing pretty well. I'm on a nice streak.
Sounds good to me. Summer of Greg is the right way to describe it. So no, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for everything in the chat. You guys were fantastic. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.